Did you know Australia has more bikers per person than anywhere else in the world? Mick Hawi was once a powerful leader among them, running one of the country's most feared biker gangs. He was close friends with one of Australia's richest and most wanted criminals. However, everything changed one day at the airport when he unexpectedly ran into a major rival. The fight that followed marked a turning point in his life. This is the story of one of Australia's most infamous biker bosses, Mahmud. Mick Hawi was born on May 29, 1980, in Beirut, Lebanon. At the age of 5, Mick and his family escaped the turmoil in Lebanon, finding a new home in Sydney, Australia. Growing up, Mick experienced a modest childhood. By 15, he had met his future wife, Kolina Gonzalez, and the couple would go on to marry in 2002 and have 2 children together. At 18, Mick joined the Comancheros, an infamous outlaw motorcycle club founded in 1968 by William "Jock" Ross. The club was a gathering point for many men of Middle Eastern descent seeking camaraderie. Jock Ross, a strict and authoritative leader, had controlled the Comancheros for decades. However, in 2002, his leadership came to a dramatic end when Mick, then just 22, and a group of younger members confronted Ross at his home. In a bold move, they beat him, stripped him of his club colors, and even took his Harley-Davidson, signaling a new era under Mick's rule. From that key moment, Mick Hawi became the new boss of the Comancheros, rising to the top as the national president and supreme commander. Despite his high-profile status, Mick's criminal record was surprisingly light, with just a few driving tickets, an offensive language charge, and a small drug possession incident in 2005. Compared to other bikers, he seemed relatively clean. Nevertheless, Mick was gaining a notorious reputation in Sydney's criminal underworld. He and his fellow Comancheros were deeply involved in illegal activities such as drug smuggling, money laundering, and extortion, all to make money. In 2007, Mick's life of crime nearly caught up with him when his car was sprayed with bullets in a shooting, vividly illustrating the perils of his lifestyle. Mick Hawi once mentioned that a bullet hit the headrest of his car, missing his head by just a few inches. After this close call, which likely stemmed from rising tensions between biker gangs, Mick decided to use more security and started traveling in an armored car. Despite these precautions, the situation escalated a year later. On a normal afternoon at Sydney Airport on March 22, 2009, unsuspecting travelers were going about their day, unaware that the airport was about to become a battleground. By pure chance, 5 Comancheros found themselves on the same flight as Derek Weo, the leader of the rival Hells Angels, setting the stage for a major confrontation. While on the plane, both the Comancheros and the Hells Angels reportedly called for backup to meet them at the airport. Once everyone arrived, the situation quickly got out of hand. In the terminal, at least 10 men from both sides started fighting fiercely, and airport security couldn't stop them. They grabbed the heavy metal posts that are used to organize lines, each weighing about 17 kilos, and used them as weapons. During the chaos, a member of the Hells Angels named Anthony Ziris was severely beaten with these posts after falling to the ground. Tragically, he did not survive the attack. Eventually, the fighting stopped, and both groups hurriedly left the scene. As Mick Hawi was leaving the airport, he was heard shouting threats towards Peter Zervis, the brother of Anthony, warning him of more violence to come. After the airport fight, while some were arrested, Mick Hawi managed to escape by catching a taxi and stayed off the radar for a while. This brutal brawl drastically changed how Australia viewed biker gangs. It led to the creation of Strikeforce Raptor, a police unit specifically aimed at tackling serious and organized crime within outlaw motorcycle gangs and similar groups. Mick disappeared after the brawl and was on the run until his lawyer announced that Mick would cooperate with the police. He turned himself in and was eventually convicted for the murder of Hells Angels member Anthony Zervas. Mick received a sentence of up to 28 years in prison, with at least 21 years to be served before he could be eligible for parole. Some say Mick took most of the blame to protect his fellow Comancheros, which earned him a great deal of respect within his group. In 2014, a twist in Mick Hawi's legal saga occurred when the NS Court of Criminal Appeal overturned his murder conviction. He was allowed to plead guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter instead. As a result, Mick was handed a sentence of just over 6 years, with a minimum of 3.5 years before parole. By 2015, considering the time he had already served, Mick was released from prison. His freedom came with 22 strict conditions, including a ban from rejoining the Comancheros or any other outlaw motorcycle gang. These conditions effectively prevented Mick from returning to his former life of crime. He began living quietly with his family, staying under the radar. Despite keeping a low profile and no longer being the Comancheros' president, Mick was aware that he still had many enemies. In Sydney, Mick Hawi usually moved around with a security team or in an armored car for protection. However, on February 15, 2018, he had neither. That day, Mick went to Fitness First Gym in Rockdale, a place known as a frequent hangout for Comancheros members. In fact, back in December 2008, Comancheros members had been involved in a huge fight there with a rival biker gang, using gym benches as weapons and pulling out pins from machines to use as makeshift knuckle dusters, as the then manager recalled. After finishing his workout on that fateful day, Mick walked back to his car, which he had boldly parked right in front of the gym, not in a designated parking spot. No one dared to challenge him on where he parked. Staff at the gym noted there was nothing they could do about it. Just as Mick closed his car door, a few seconds later, an assailant rushed up to his driver's side window, pulled out a gun, and fired at least 6 shots at close range. Despite being shot from close range, Mick Hawi initially survived the attack. He was quickly taken to St. George Hospital in critical condition, but eventually passed away from his injuries. The shooter made a quick getaway back to a gray Mercedes that sped away and was later found abandoned and burned out. Security camera footage captured the suspects fleeing through a neighborhood and switching to a Toyota. Beyond the torched car, there were no immediate clues to their whereabouts. The police responded rapidly, deploying a helicopter to survey the crime scene area. Assistant Commissioner Mal Lanen stated that the New South Wales police were using all available resources to tackle what he predicted would be a challenging investigation. Although it's too soon to pinpoint a motive, Mick Hawi's past involvement in organized crime is being closely examined. The police are also focusing on preventing any potential retaliation following this incident. Just like that, the once dreaded president of the Comancheros had his life brutally taken. At Mick's funeral, many people came to show their support, and immediately questions started swirling. Who was the shooter? And perhaps even more crucially, who could have ordered such a hit? The police took the case very seriously, especially considering the historical context of the airport brawl that resulted in the death of Hells Angels member Anthony Zervas. In a related development, Anthony's mother, Frederica Bromwich, gave a particularly interesting interview. Just 2 days after Mick Hawi's death, Frederica Bromwich, mother of Anthony Zervas, who died in a brawl involving Mick, expressed no sympathy in an interview. She called Mick's death karma, suggesting that actions in life come back to haunt you. "He deserved it, but my son didn't," she said, indicating relief that Mick was gone. Her remarks, especially her approval of the attackers, prompted mixed reactions from the public. While some understood Frederica Bromwich's lack of sympathy, others pointed out that her own sons had troubled histories. Speculation about the motive behind Mick Hawi's murder ran rampant. As a former president of the Comancheros, Mick had made numerous enemies. Was it a rival biker gang, or perhaps allies of the Hells Angels and Anthony Zervas seeking revenge. Another intriguing possibility was that the attack came from within his own gang. After Mick's arrest and subsequent imprisonment, the leadership of the Comancheros was left in limbo until Mark Boole stepped in as the new president. No one expected Mick to return so soon, adding another layer of complexity to the theories swirling around his sudden demise. When Mick Hawi returned from prison, there were rumors he wanted to reclaim his leadership role and power within the Comancheros, but Mark Boole, the current president, wasn't willing to step aside. This tension reportedly led to a significant conflict between them, noted by the Daily Telegraph just weeks before the shooting. Assistant Commissioner Mal Lonan commented that while Mark Boole was one person of interest among many, given Mick's numerous enemies, Boole had never been formally accused or charged in relation to the hit. In August 2018, NSSW police arrested 4 suspects for the shooting. The main suspect, lone wolf biker Yusuf Nazlioglu, was suspected of being the gunman. Alongside him, Ahmad Duda was arrested for allegedly aiding in disposing of the getaway car. Jamal El-Jai, the suspected getaway driver, and Mustafa Salami, accused of helping move the cars used in the attack, were arrested later. None of the men admitted guilt, and a lengthy trial followed. During the trial, it was revealed that Yusuf had become friends with Mick after his 2015 release from prison, but their relationship soured 2 years later. Mick's wife testified that Yusuf had embarrassed Mick during a fishing trip, leading Mick to end their friendship, which infuriated Yusuf. Despite significant evidence, including a balaclava in the getaway car with Yusuf's DNA, the court found it insufficient and acquitted Yusuf and Jamal of their charges in December 2020. Ahmed accepted a plea deal. Fast forward to June 27, 2022, Yusuf was attacked in a similar fashion. He was shot several times just as he was parking his car at home. After the shooting, the police quickly arrived at the scene, but the shooter had already escaped in a silver car, which was later found abandoned and burned out. Yusuf was treated at the scene by paramedics and rushed to Westmead Hospital, where he ultimately passed away due to his injuries. Many initially speculated that this attack might be linked to Mick Hawi, especially since it was common knowledge that Yusuf had said he could be targeted at any time due to his numerous enemies. Superintendent Danny Doty noted that Yusuf had conflicts with various groups and was involved in other organized crime activities, so there were multiple possible motives and theories behind his murder. Ultimately, 3 men were charged in connection with Yusuf's killing, but none of them were connected to Mick Hawi. As of 2023, no one has been prosecuted for the attack on Mick,